Welcome back to the Breakthrough Lab podcast. This episode is brought to you by the ube tea cookies that are now available at Trader Joe's. JK, Trader Joe's is not actually a sponsor, but just wanted to let you know out there that if you love the ube tea cookies from Trader Joe's, they are at the store. They're limited edition. They're like limited run, so they only sell them for a short amount of time. Personally, I'm stocking up so that I can have them for like a year longer, or however long it takes till the next one gets there anyway. Thought you should know.
For those of you who don't know what ube is it Japanese?
Japanese, Filipino, something like that.
Sweet potato, and it's purple.
My understanding,
common treat.
Yeah, my understanding was that it was Japanese, but on the box it says something about the Philippines, so I don't know.
Oh, there you go. Well, it is delicious.
It is big in
Japan.
I
don't know about these cookies Josh is talking about, but ube in and of itself is delicious.
Yes.
If you are in DFW and you're not too far from Irving, there is a coffee shop that is a part of a church. It's called Cuppa, and it is so good. And they have ube drinks that you will absolutely love. You get a matcha tea with purple, like ube foam. So it's like this purple and green concoction that looks like a Barney, but it tastes so good. It's matcha, and it's good for you, and it's just delicious.
I'll have the Baby Bop drink.
Yeah, there we go. Baby Bop. I forgot about her. Oh my goodness.
Anyway, thank you for Trader Joe's for bringing those back and for sponsoring this episode. Wink, wink. Now with that, we'd like to get into the meat and potatoes. Oh, the potatoes. Oh, did I start with another pun because ube is a sweet potato? The meat and potatoes. Okay, here we go.
So many puns. I think we're going to start like being punny people.
I've been that, but I'm trying not to be so punny on this. Yep, keeping all this in the episode. Here we go. Here's the content of the episode. This one, you probably saw from the title, is about being kinder to yourself. And if this caught your eye and you thought, wow, I should probably listen to that episode, maybe you're having some of these thoughts go through your head. Thoughts like you're saying to yourself, it was all my fault. It's my fault. I always blah, blah, blah. I'll never blah, blah, blah. Why am I the worst? Just feeling really bad about yourself, just feeling down on yourself, having self-pity to the highest degree. Why am I such a bummer? What is wrong with me? I always hurt everyone who gets close to me. Things like this. And you may be at a place in your life where you feel like you have hit rock bottom and you've received a wake-up call. Maybe your wife has left you and she took the kids with her. Maybe you got fired from yet another job. And you're only now seeing the pattern that you've created in your life and only now realizing that the common thread between all these things and situations in your life in the past has been you. And maybe you were the problem, not everyone else. So if you are having thoughts like this, where you're like feeling really down on yourself, you're realizing, you're like, I'm the problem, I'm the worst, I'm evil. This is for you.
So what we're really talking about here is how do you be kinder to yourself? How do you get to a point where your thoughts truly are positive? We've been talking a lot about thoughts and how, our words hold so much power, and how our thoughts, even though they're not spoken out loud, they still hold so much power. When we're constantly just running this programming of negativity, like how do we stop that? And really, it's going to start with some mindset shifts. One of the reasons that I think people think these things about themselves, other than underlying programming, right? Like of self-worth, of feeling like you're not good enough, of feeling like you don't deserve certain things that maybe you're not worthy, are also these feelings that maybe you have to put yourself down because you're a bad person, right? So if you're thinking you're not worthy, that you're a bad person, and then you do something, if you exhibit a behavior that corroborates that belief, what do? Well, now you have to talk about it and berate yourself, right? Like it's this idea that, hey, if I shame myself or guilt myself, it's almost like a wash. Like now I've been punished, if you will. Like, okay, well, I made up for it because I gave myself a, verbal whipping, if you will. And the thing to think about here is like, does that really solve anything? Other than maybe satisfying some sort of secondary gain or some belief that you have that, okay, well, now it's fair. Now I've got my just punishment. I've been, here's the consequence of that. Like, you're not actually helping anyone, least of all yourself, by repeating that pattern over and over. The true way to break through from that is to stop that behavior altogether, right? Stop, just completely halt that programming and do something different. And I think about it when somebody wrongs you and they do it the first time, okay. The second time you're annoyed. The third time you're like, for real? The fourth time after they come to you saying, oh, I'll never do it again, you don't believe them anymore. That's not what you want. You don't even want them to say that they're sorry anymore. You just want them to stop that behavior and do something different. And that's the true goal, right? Is to be able to do something different. And that starts by letting go of this idea that you even have to think these negative thoughts about yourself in the first place to atone for something. Instead of focusing on whatever it is that, whatever that belief was, realizing that you can just say, hey, this happened. Okay, what's next? What do I do now? This concept also relates to something we've talked about before in the beginning of our podcast, and that is that people are not their behaviors. And since people are not their behaviors, then again, it really doesn't make sense to sit there and engage in any sort of self-reprimands for who you are and how you're such a bad person. You're not. It was just a decision that you made in the moment that didn't have the consequence or the result that you wanted out of it. Once you start to think in this different way, where instead of dwelling on whatever it is, imposing some sort of negative self-talk on yourself, your energy that you used to divert into that action, you can now use it to take action on whatever it is that you actually wanted in the first place. And isn't that an awesome thing? Like, not wasting all of that time, energy, emotion on things that aren't going to help anything anyway, won't get you anywhere. Stopping that, and instead now you're focusing on what you actually wanted and making that happen. Imagine how much of your mental capacity would be relieved by just having that one little shift. Remembering that since you are not your behavior, you literally can just change what you're doing. I think one of the things that people really get bent up on, what I notice is when I work with people and we do a bunch of release work, sometimes the natural tendency is to think, oh my gosh, I'm so happy this is gone. Then like the second thought that comes in is, oh my gosh, look at all that time I wasted by having done all of these other things in the first place. And that's a very, very slippery slope, right? Because the easiest way to rebuild any sort of those negative emotions like shame, guilt, and regret is by thinking in that way, thinking, oh, I coulda, woulda, shoulda, because of, circumstances. But you have to remember that you and everybody else on this planet, every single person is doing the best they can with the resources they have right now. Yes, it is 100% true that you have all of the resources inside of you. Yes, it is 100% true that you are responsible for your actions, no one else. You're responsible for your reactions, no one else. And for a lot of us, it is also 100% true that we may be blocked off or blinded by limiting beliefs, stuck negative emotions. Even sometimes we're in environments that are baggage, that are toxic to us, where we can't access our own resources. It goes back to that, when you're in a problem, you can't always solve it from the level through which you're seeing things. That's when you may need someone to help you. Nobody does, if you think about all the times in your life that you've had major aha moments, most of them, if not all of them, are probably you surrounded by other people in community. There's somebody else, some sort of event, some sort of knowledge that you came into contact with that helped you get to that next spot. And that's what we're talking about here. Everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have in that moment. Once you receive some sort of intervention, if you will, from the universe through knowledge or an interaction with someone, and you're changed when you rediscover resources inside of you, then you give thanks for having those resources at your disposal again. And then you just learn from it. You take the lessons from what you have gone through in the past and you move forward with it instead of looking back and thinking, oh my gosh, if only I'd had this when I was younger, where could I be now? Well, if you'd had this when you were younger, you wouldn't have gone through some of the things that you needed to go through or learn some of the things or get the experience. I heard a really great quote the other day. Good judgment comes from experience, and good experience comes from bad judgment. I thought that was pretty funny. I was like, hey, this is basically saying that we can learn from everything, even the things that happen in our lives that don't feel that great in the moment. But, Joshua touched on this a few episodes ago when you were talking about the podcast about how when you want to grow as a person, personal growth and development, spirituality, that you do have to be present in all of the moments in your life, even the ones that aren't always the most pleasant for you, because that's where we learn our life lessons. That's how we grow. Now, even though everyone is doing the best they can with the resources they have in that time, I want to take a time out real quick and make sure that we're very honest right now. We're going to be very real. We're about to get very real. People are not their behavior. Everyone's doing the best they can with the resources that they have. These are not meant as cop-outs for not taking responsibility, because if there's one thing we talk about a lot on this podcast is being at cause. In other words, being the person who takes responsibility for the things that are going on in their lives. Not because it's about blame, not because it's about fault, but because when you take ownership of something, that gives you some of your power back. Because it puts you in that position where now I can do something about it. Now I can be empowered because I'm taking responsibility for what my next step is going to be, despite all these other things happening. It makes me feel like I can actually do something to change instead of just being a victim that things just happen to. And the reason that we want to make this distinction is because the goal is to be kind to yourself, but not in a way that is completely delusional and you're actually just shirking off any sort of responsibility for mistakes. We are operating from a mindset where we're thinking there's no failure, there's only feedback. However, if you repeat the same thing over and over and over and over again, I would say that is a way to fail. Right? Like if you know you're doing something, you have a goal, you're repeating the same thing over and over, you're failing to learn the lesson, to course correct. You're not getting the appropriate feedback. You're not giving yourself the time to get the appropriate feedback so that you can change, so that you can do something different. That's when we tie it back to that friend who, after the fourth or fifth time, you're like, hey, I'm tired of hearing you say that you're not going to do this anymore. I just want to see you actually doing it, or else just leave me alone, right? That's the mindset that you can get to. So again, there's this fine line of, hey, it's not about blame. It's not about fault. It's not about saying, well, I was intoxicated, so it's not my fault. Or, oh, well, I'm sick, so I'm grumpy all the time, so it's not my fault that I was mean to you. Yes, maybe we all have these moments, where our judgment is weaker if we don't feel well. However, if this is a consistent pattern for you in your life, this is where we're talking about, hey, take responsibility for your actions. You are in charge of the circumstances up to a certain point and how you react to them.
Yeah, you're right. And at the end of the day, we are talking about not, of course, the first step is accountability, radical accountability for everything in your life, but also we want to know how to still be kind to ourselves with that. So for the people out there who are having the problems where they're thinking negative things about themselves, they have negative self-talk, they're just really down on themselves, how would you say that they can tackle this? How can they start being more kind to themselves?
Well, it's definitely a process. And I think one of the easiest ways to tackle something like this is by taking a holistic approach. That is taking into account your spiritual, your mental, your emotional, and your physical body. Because when we look at it from all of those perspectives, that's when we're going to make the true amount of progress. And what this could look like is in your physical nutrition. Quit all substances. If you are consuming things physically that put you in a mood that's not positive, whether that's a certain food or alcohol or drugs, you know that it's not making you feel great, then quit them. Especially if you're abusing them. For your spiritual and emotional body, that may look like doing Ho'oponopono, forgiving yourself, forgiving others, any sort of forgiveness practice. For your emotional body, that could also mean letting go of different stuck emotions, different traumas that you've had in your past. For your mental nutrition, that could look like surrounding yourself with other sorts of people or ideas that are going to feed your mind positive things. An example of that would be reading the book Letting Go by David R. Hawkins that we talk about so much. Dr. Barker also talked about this. This would also help you with your emotional nutrition, right? Because it can help you release these negative emotions we're talking about. Two birds in one stone there. And some other things you can do, and these are, again, looking at it from a holistic point of view. We've talked about this at length, and I'm going to go ahead and mention it again, is reframing the things in your lives. So again, when there's any sort of obstacle, when you're thinking poorly about yourself because of a situation and how you could have done things differently, like how can you look at that differently? How can you look at the facts of everything, not taking things personally, but just looking at it from, what did I learn here? I'll give an example. I was talking to somebody who had, they told me that their biggest challenge was an encounter they had with somebody that wasn't really a friend, but it was a friend of a friend. And they're like, oh, I overreacted and I had this outburst. And I told them that I didn't necessarily appreciate them giving me advice about something. And I stopped and I was like, okay, so this was a challenge. However, was it an inappropriate response? Did you have a negative charge when this thing happened? And if you didn't, then was that really an inappropriate overreaction? Just because that person reacted in a negative way, if you did it in a respectful way, isn't that an example of you holding a boundary? And this person was just like, oh my gosh, like I hadn't even looked at it that way. I hadn't even considered that I was actually, in my standing in my empowerment and helping someone understand how I wanted them to treat me or how I didn't want them to treat me. And that they just didn't like that I did that and that they just took it the wrong way. And I'm like, yeah, look, I wasn't there. I'm not here to tell you that that's what happened. Again, I'm just presenting to you as somebody who wasn't in there, right, and who's just observing and listening to you, here are the facts. Like what actually happened? What could this mean other than what it meant? Again, not as a way to absolve anything, but as a way of looking at something and really having that self-reflection and that awareness to understand, okay, what is it that I actually want? What is it that I could have done differently? What do I need to, where do I need to go from here? And we concluded that, you know, she after she had her reflection, that this was not something that was an inappropriate response in and of itself from the charge, but that she could have delivered it in a better way. And so we went through how could we have delivered that message in a way that was just a little bit using the NLP agreement frame, and that was super, super helpful for her. And another thing you can do is take action. Like, again, these are all examples of how you can take action and apply these things. And however, if you want to either see faster results, or you're already doing those things and you're like, well, I'm doing these and I'm still where I am, it hasn't gotten any better, then take action by either getting counseling, getting coaching from someone, booking a discovery call with one of us, getting yourself into a breakthrough session. Overall, what you're looking for here, though, is having somebody in your corner who is not just going to sit there and validate the stories that you've been making up for yourself over and over and over again and telling you that it's okay. Like, it is okay to hop on a call with somebody and have them tell you that a lot of what you're saying are just excuses, and that they're BS, and that you know better, and you know that you know better, and that whatever excuse you're giving me for why you can't do X, Y, or Z is not the actual problem. You know, it's something else. And when are you ready to get rid of that now? Because anybody else who's sitting there validating you is just helping you continue down this path that you know you don't want to be on anyway, don't you? So finding somebody who is going to be able to hold you accountable to the things that you say you want. You don't actually want them, then don't do this step. But if you do actually want them, then take action now. Make it happen. This is going to be the easiest, fastest way for you to start getting those results. Start being kinder to yourself in the moment. So to recap all those steps, we're going to approach everything from a holistic point of view by focusing on our physical nutrition, doing whatever it is we need to do there, including quitting substances that we know are not good for us. The spiritual and emotional nutrition by fostering forgiveness for self and others through the Ho'oponopono process. Mental nutrition by feeding our minds positive things that'll help us reframe ourselves and focus on the positive. And then actually reframing challenges through reflection. And this is where you can bring in something like journaling if it's appropriate, so that you can actually see a situation for all of the different meanings that it could have, not just the one that you've assigned to it in the moment. And then taking action, when necessary and appropriate, by finding someone who can help you through this, someone who will actually hold you accountable, someone who's a professional, someone who can help you to overcome all of these things, let go of the things that aren't serving you, and blaze forth on that trail that you know you are meant to walk on.
No lies were told. Thank you, Michelle. We hope you've enjoyed this episode on being more kind to yourself. And with that, we kindly direct you to the outro of the episode. Take care.